Hey guys, happy Friday. I am waiting on my guest of honor. Let me make sure I can see myself over on YouTube because StreamYard broadcasts to YouTube. You close that window, hit refresh. And yep, we are live. And there's an ad playing. So YouTube is hold on, let me mute this. All right. We already have one boo here. I don't think Dre Ellerby. Oh, I shouldn't have said your last name. I don't think Dre is happy about Buckeye Alex coming back to talk about what's happening down in Columbus. But the TTDS is our rival, so it's good and it's healthy for us to know what's happening with them in anticipation of Thanksgiving 2022. Speaking of which, let me let Abdul Gaines know that I'm live because um, Abdul Gaines actually coined the term Thanksgiving 2022. Now, Buckeye Alex is not going to come right. He'll probably be here in another 10 minutes. So I have two articles that I'm going to read regarding the Ohio State 2022 spring game. And hopefully, by the time I'm finished, he'll be here or he'll be closely on his way. And then we'll do a little quick Q&A on what's happening in Columbus in the off season in anticipation of the 2022 Big Ten football season. Before I jump in, a few shameless plugs. Please consider joining the Big Words LLC Newsletter. This information is below in the description box. In addition to being a YouTube content creator, I am also a writer working on a book. And in the newsletter, that's one of the things I'm going to talk about is finalizing the book and, little anecdotes and musings related to YouTubing and writing and, stuff from my other platforms. But I'll be talking about the book. There's a greeting here and there's a subscribe button there at the bottom. You just click that and enter in your email address. And I promise I won't give your information away to a third party. So that's my newsletter. That is the Big Words LLC newsletter there. And then my book project is called The Engineers, a Western New York Basketball Story. I am all set to publish another promotional essay for this. I'm just making the final edits. And I have to get the pictures together. And yeah, I'm searching for an editor right now. When you write a book, there when you get to that end stage, there are always final tweaks that you're making and always things in your mind where you say, should I do this? Should I do this? I should change this to this. I should change this to that. I actually have an interview that I'm going to upload on this channel really soon with Jason Rowe, who is one of the characters in the book and someone I've interviewed a couple of times. There's actually a video interview of me and Jason about 2 years ago here on this channel. So that's coming. And I also did a discussion of the book from a literary perspective over on my entertainment and media channel. I'm going to share that on my community tab here For those of you who are interested in hearing some more about it, on my original channel, I'm going to talk about the book in the context of more of the life aspects. And then here on this channel, I'm going to talk about it more in the context of the hardcore sports aspects. On my science channel, I'm going to talk about it over there in terms of what you learn from sports and what you learn from athletics, because a lot of folks don't know, but the science world is also a lot about competition, and folks don't know that. And I didn't learn that until I got into graduate school at the University of Michigan. And then on my entertainment and media channel, I'm going to talk about it from the context of being a literary work. So look out for that short live stream on my community tab here. Okay, so I have two articles related to the Ohio State spring game that I'm going to read for you guys. And hopefully when I'm done, Buckeye Alex will be here. One other thing, I have a super chat here. So if you feel so inclined to super chat me something, a comment to one of us or to both of us, that's there. But also if you want to make a donation via Cash App or PayPal, that is there. You're under no obligation or pressure to do it. All right. So let's talk about the Ohio State spring game. And that, if I recall correctly, it was that morning that Dwayne Haskins passed away down in Florida. So if you haven't, please take a look at my Dwayne Haskins video. It could use some more love. I thought it would get more. Maybe my Wolverine fans are like, why are you posting videos about Dwayne Haskins? Well, even though this channel is Michigan football intensive, it's a sports channel. And also, guys, I give respect to our rivals. You know, Dwayne Haskins is forever a part of Michigan football history. He made a lot of plays in the games against us, and he's a part of our history. Guys, give me 1 second here, all right? 1 second. I'm babysitting two pooches, and I heard some noises in the background, so I had to make sure no one was having an accident on my carpet or something else that happens when you're babysitting two pooches. So, Wolf says fall is almost here. I can't wait. I think it's going to be another championship season for the Buckeyes. And of course, our resident super fan is here who coined the hashtag Thanksgiving 2022. Abdul Gaines is here. He says Thanksgiving weekend 2022. I can't wait. Wolf says thumbs up. Wolf, do you have pooches yourself, or one or two or three? Abdul Gaines says the Wolverines are a bunch of quitters. Okay, so Abdul Gaines feels like we chickened out of the 2022 season, even though we did get a number of positives, which in my mind is a plausible reason for not playing the game during that dreadful season. Okay, the Ohio State spring game. These are two short articles. Hopefully, Buckeye Alex will come and join us. Otherwise, I will, bounce off. Oh, there he is. Alex, I have two short articles. Let me read these, and then I'll bring you up, and you can tell us what's happening down in Columbus. Wolf says, I have a Newfoundland. Okay. You know what? I'm a dog novice, so I only know a few breeds. I'm babysitting two Siberian Huskies here, so I'm none the wiser. I know what a German Shepherd is, and a Doberman Pinscher, and a Saint Bernard, but I'm not familiar with the Newfoundland. Anyway, so this reads as follows. Real Pod Wednesdays. I just looked these up on Google. What stood out at Ohio State Spring Game and Coaches Clinic? This was written by Dan Hope and Griffin Storm on April 20th. And this reads as follows. The final week of spring football gave us our closest look yet at the 2022 Buckeyes. Ohio State took the field on Saturday for its annual spring game in Ohio Stadium. And while there wasn't necessarily any overarching storyline that came out of this year's scrimmage, there were no shortage of individual players who stood out. We begin this week's episode of Real Pod Wednesdays by talking about some of the biggest standouts from this year's spring game, including players who have received plenty of post-spring game publicity, like Kai Stokes and Jordan Hancock, but also some players who deserve more attention for their spring game performances, like Andre Turrentine, Noah Potter, and Xavier Johnson. We also consider how much playing time Evan Pryor could see at running back this year, what we make of G. Scott Jr., and the tight end's performance in the spring game, why the offensive line remains Ryan Day's biggest concern, what we took away from Kyle McCord and Devin Brown's showings, and what made Ohio State's halftime tribute to Dwayne Haskins so powerful. Before Saturday's spring game, both of us also had the opportunity to attend the Ohio State football coaches clinic on Thursday and Friday, giving us a behind-the-scenes look at what Ohio State's coaches are teaching their players. Dan Shears, starting around the 30 mark and continuing around the 40-minute mark, what he learned about the new defensive scheme from watching Jim Nils speak, and Griffin explains why Larry Johnson's presentation gave him a new lease on life. In the final 20 minutes of the show, we discuss a handful of other news items from the past week, including Jacoby Cohen entering the transfer portal, why Ohio State is recruiting former USC kicker Parker Lewis, and what Sevian Banks could do at LSU, the commitments of Bryson Rogers and Dijon Johnson, and how Michi Johnson's departure makes it even more important for the Buckeyes to land a couple more high-quality players from the transfer portal. You can listen to Real Pod Wednesdays in the audio player above or wherever you listen to the podcast. Okay, so this article is basically setting up their podcast. So, Alex, you have the link. I'm going to read this other one. It's short. And then afterwards, I will bring you up. As I was watching the game, I caught a little bit of the Ohio State spring game, or maybe the replay. It turns out that I guess for the Ohio State spring game, the winning team and their families have a nice dinner or a nice post-game meal after the game. And then the losing team has to walk across campus and they have to eat hot dogs. I don't know. But, I mean, I'd be happy to eat hot dogs anytime. But I guess that's the tradition for the Ohio State spring game. Okay, let me read this real quick. Column, some final reflections on Ohio State's 2022 spring game. This is written by David M. Wheeler on April 21st. And it reads, and there's another podcast here. For me, the Ohio State spring game was a much anticipated event. I admit it. I am football starved. How bad I even watched some USFL action. The Buckeyes' glorified scrimmage could never have met my hopes and expectations, but it did provide some real highlights along with some letdowns. The first bonus I got was when I turned on the Big Ten Network about 20 minutes early and caught the last quarter or so of the Rose Bowl. Yes, this past Rose Bowl, I'll tell you, it's easier sledding to sit back and watch the game when you know that the Bucks are going to pull it off or pull it out in the end. C.J. Stroud, Jackson Smith, and Jiba, Trevion Henderson combining to score at will against the Utes was a happy repeat performance. Next, I got info about how the game would be played, offense against defense. That's fine with me. Tackling on some series of downs. A weird scoring system that reminds us that Ryan Day is an offensive coach. Certainly, the highlight was the tribute to Dwayne Haskins, the Stroud wearing Haskins jersey. The video, well-deserved for one of the Buckeye greats. As far as the game itself, I'm going to divide this piece into excitements and disappointments for both offense and defense. The announcers, usually good by the way, seemed to get a little bored with play on the field and resorted to chatter. I know that I should have had a roster by my side. I didn't though, and I didn't get much help from the press box guys to inform me about who was doing what. So here goes. Offensive excitement. Running game. Even with tackling permitted, me and Williams and Evan Pryor broke some nice runs in the post-game presser. They spoke of Pryor's burst and wiggle and his ability to catch passes out of the backfield. He looked as though he has improved a lot since the fall. As for Williams, I've always liked him, and he gained 101 yards on 15 carries. Stroud and Kyle McCord, both Stroud and number 2 quarterback Kyle McCord, look solid in guiding the vanilla offense on display last Saturday. Both look ready to go for the 2022 season. New receivers. I wanted to get a good and early look at 2 true freshmen who were playing in the spring game. Caleb Brown and Keon Grays both played, but I was especially impressed with Burton's play. He caught a little sideline pass near the end of the game, but I think that we saw the future on a couple of long pass plays where Burton got wide open for what could have been TDs with accurate passes, but QB Devin Brown overthrew one of them and underthrew the other. Tight ends. I'm trying to hurry up here, Alex. Hold on. With Jeremy Ruckert gone, this position was a big question mark. I thought we'd be seeing a lot of Mitch Rossi. Not in this game. Instead, we saw lots of G. Scott and Roy and Joe Royer, and they looked really good. Will 2022 be the year of the OSU tight ends? Okay, now, damn it. You know what? This article is below. Buckeye Alex is probably on his lunch break. I'm on my lunch break. This is in the description box below if you want to read it. I'm going to play this quick intro, and then I'm going to bring Alex up. Hello, Buckeye Alex. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. What say you?
What's going on?
Not much, in my world, just working. Happy to be back on, obviously discussing the Buckeyes. Spring game was great. Had an opportunity to catch it. Happy belated Easter to everybody. If let's just hop into it. Obviously, in our message, our text group, there's been a huge back and forth about Michigan quitting, and then the obviously game last year in Ann Arbor where Michigan kind of handed Ohio State its behind, and it was good. It was something that we needed. A little too big headed. I think it was a perfect storm. I think I think if we play each other the same 10 times, Michigan probably wins 4 or 5 of those. Maybe we split. Michigan was definitely a tougher team than we were last year. Ohio State has really leaned into the finesse in regards to the passing game, trying to figure out the mixture of the running game. Last year was just, from a defensive standpoint, was just a mess from the very beginning. We hired somebody who had never been a defensive coordinator in Kerry Combs, and listen, Kerry Combs is a legend. He's great. that he's just not a defensive coordinator. So to correct the things that happened last year, Ohio State went out and got Jim Knowles, who had Oklahoma as a top 10 defense or top 5 defense in the country, which is remarkable. Coming from that type of program in that league and the caliber players that particular school recruits. Listen, it was a swing, and I think we hit a home run with Jim Knowles. So Ryan Day was really after somebody who just wanted to quarterback the defense and actually coach defense, where he's going to handle the offense. He wanted basically a defensive head coach, and I think that's what he got. And looking at the spring game, I'm really excited. We've had some departures due to the hire. We've had some awesome pickups also due to the hire. So we'll see. I think we're in a good position though for next year.
Okay, before we get to the spring game and the revived coaching staff, I want to talk about the quarterback position. Did you were transferred, right?
Yes, he's at Texas now. Correct.
Okay, so why did he say, okay, CJ's got this job, I'm not going to play for another 2 to 3 years? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think it's that. I think keep in mind, so Quinn Ewers originally was a 2022 commit. Okay. And he decided, because he could not get paid for playing in college, that he would graduate early. And he ended up on Ohio State's campus, I want to say maybe like June, July, maybe. So he had missed spring camp. He made it at the end of summer workouts going into fall camp. And, I think a lot of it was him being homesick. A lot of it was he realized, in my opinion, that he has Kyle McCord in front of him. And, he was the third guy on the totem pole. And keep in mind, Jack Miller at that time was also still with the program, who came in with CJ. So, you had basically CJ, then you had Jack Miller and McCord, and then you had Ewers as basically the fourth string. So, there's obviously going to be some attrition there because Jack Miller came in with CJ. So we figured either between him and McCord, one of those guys were going to leave. And it ended up being Jack Miller, who's now at the University of Florida. I think that's a great spot for him. They have a new coaching staff. I live near Gainesville. They're really excited to have him down here. He's a good quarterback. He's very, very solid. He can sling it. But for Ewers, he came in basically as a part of the 2021 class late. And he just never really had the opportunity because the guys were here before him. And I think once I think a lot of people asked Ryan about Ewers, and he just said that he wasn't ready. That he came in late and he wasn't ready, and that's every football player. It's not just Ewers. Any player in that position who tries to move up a class and is basically 6 months behind everybody else, there's going to be a huge learning curve for him to try to catch up, and that's just what happened with Ewers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, it looks like it's solidly CJ Stroud's job now, unless, of course, the unfortunate thing happens, an injury.
Correct.
But it looks like it's his job.
Yes.
And so you guys lose Chris Olave. You lost two of the 3, right?
Yeah, we lost Garrett Wilson also. Garrett Wilson. I knew Garrett Wilson was that. Listen, he's a special player. Some of the guys you mentioned are special players. They're the wide receiver room at Ohio State is it's so stacked that a player literally has to leave and go to Alabama, and he might be a first round pick, and that guy couldn't play in Ohio State's wide receiver room. He couldn't get reps because of Jackson Smith and Jigba. So the wide receiver room, if we do anything, if Ohio State does anything well, it's quarterback play and wide receivers.
Okay.
They're second to none in those categories. They put guys in the league consistently now, so they have a really good thing going with Day and those guys he's recruiting down there. So I think Devin Brown I actually like him a lot more than I like Quinn Ewers. So even though he was the number 1 player in the nation, I think Devin Brown has a bigger upside than him.
Okay, but you guys have Marvin Harrison's kid
Yes, we also
uh,
have Marvin Harrison Jr. too.
stepping
Yes,
up, and I hear he's pretty good.
I think he had 3 touchdowns in the Rose Bowl. I think he broke another record too in the Rose Bowl. So, uh, listen, it's a pipeline. It's literally a pipeline of wide receivers over the. If we stop right now, we'll probably have wide receivers out of the first round within the next like 4 or 5 years every year. So, uh, kudos to Brian Hartline, who was not the best wide receiver while he was at Ohio State. He was solid, but he wasn't great. Average NFL wide receiver, but an excellent, outstanding coach. He is a great coach in teaching that position. He's there's nobody better than him right now.
Okay, yeah, he seemed like one of those heart wide receivers who gave one of those athletes who just gives it all his all, and
Yes, I, th-
maybe not the
I
most
think
physically gifted, but
no. I think Brian Hartline actually has the slowest kickoff return for a touchdown I've ever seen in my entire life. But listen, he knows he was an excellent route runner, not the quickest, not the fastest, but understood how to use his body, getting in and out of breaks, etc. So and setting DBs up for what he wanted to do on his end. So listen, great hire. He's been magnificent. He'd be great anywhere he went. Just his knowledge of the game and of the position and his pedigree, second to none.
okay. Hey, for all the guys watching, well, not all, for the little crowd we have here, please hit that like button. I suspect more people will watch this on the playback as it is lunchtime on Friday.
Yeah.
So Alex, let's talk about the 2021 game. I certainly didn't think we would win that. I was just hoping to keep it close. Of course, I wish I could have seen Abdul Gaines' face as Hassan Haskins was hitting those holes. but talk about that. What was it the elements? Was it
I
the
think
defense? Was it you
I think
guys
I think I
underestimated
think
the Michigan team, or what?
I think it was the elements. I think it was a listen. I think it was the perfect storm for that particular year. Um, we lost linebackers first part of the year. We
Hmm.
lost 2 linebackers. We actually in that game had a tight end playing linebacker because
Wow.
we were so thin. Not to mention, no excuses, but the whole team had the flu. The whole team had the flu. Uh, and listen, when it's the game. There's no excuses. Uh, and I think all those things just kind of came into play. Michigan wanted to. I mean, football in general, if anybody knows the game, is one in the trenches, and it's a game of will at the end of the day. And Michigan's will that day was just stronger than Ohio State's. I think in past years, Michigan would just roll over, and that didn't happen. And I think they had a great I think they had a great offensive game plan. Shout out to Josh Gaddis and I think Mike McDonald is his name, the defensive coordinator, who's now
Hmm.
back with the um,
Ravens.
the Ravens. So listen, they had a great scheme. They did something that we've been planning for years, which I think we kind of got away from, which is no game matters unless we beat Michigan at the end of the year. So we saw it early in the Oregon game. Listen, Oregon's a very physical running team. Cristobal, that's his type of team that he likes to coach. So I think we saw it early. Michigan's a very very similar team to Oregon last year, and we lost both those games. Just not due to it wasn't a talent issue. It's not a coaching issue. It's a heart and physicality issue at the end of the day, and they just are they're the more physical team and impose their will. Um, and I think there's a couple other things too. I think that you can't in a game like that. Uh, you just got to bring it. And there was a lot of things wrong with last year with Ohio State's team. We basically had 4 tackles, no guards. That was not a good idea. And because of that, there have been a lot of changes due to the coaching staff. After that game, I just think traditionally, I think there was so much talent. You just need the talent's going to win out, and sometimes it doesn't. A lot of times it's scheme. Talent doesn't necessarily always win out. So I think those are a lot of contributing factors to how the season went last year. And keep in mind, a two loss season in Columbus is like, you know, it's we're not used to that. It's a shock to the system. It really is. I mean, and we really wanted to. I mean, I'm glad we won a Rose Bowl. That's great and everything. But listen, that Michigan game it's still fresh. It's still a fresh wound. So,
Mm-hmm.
but in my opinion, those are the things that led to Michigan's victory. And keep in mind, Michigan in a lot of past games, like the Michigan State game, where I feel like they took their foot off the gas a little bit. They didn't in the Ohio State game. They kept their foot on the gas. And I mean, they were literally just throwing. I mean, because we didn't, we couldn't stop it, but they were just throwing. They're rolling two linemen out, and Haskins was just running right behind him, and there's nothing we could do about it. So I don't feel like we made good adjustments from a defensive perspective to combat what Michigan was doing. So
Mm-hmm.
they're just listen. It was just a power eye, and no gaps, no middle stuff. Just stretch and run two linemen out there to block in front of them. So and it is what it is. So I mean, I'm very happy. Like I said, I'm happy that Michigan won because I feel like Ohio State was very complacent in a lot of ways, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a slap in the face. And I think that about. You there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
1 second.
Okay. Well, while Alex comes back, I'll just say that the prediction for next season is that our defense is going to be inexperienced. The offense is going to have to carry the team, and the offense is going to have a lot of weapons. So I was thinking about the Brady Hoke win back in 2011. So we could easily see, we got this win. We could easily go down there to the shoe and get mauled next season. So next season's not guaranteed.
Give me a second.
But I predict, yeah, if anything, it'll probably be a shootout. Oh, he's gone again. Yeah, with our defense losing the players that it lost, I predict that next season's game will be a bit of a shootout because you have C.J. Stroud back there. He's a veteran. He'll be slinging the ball around. Whoever is going to play quarterback for us, probably Cade. He's got a year of starting now, so he'll be slinging the ball around. We have our offensive weapons. So I think next year's game will probably be a bit of a shootout with a high score on both sides.
It's possible. I mean, like I said initially, we had a lot of injuries last year, a lot, especially on that defensive side of the ball. Our best defensive tackle was hurt. Our All-American safety injured, hurt for the year. And we had basically a freshman back there almost like a walk-on freshman who has now moved on from the program, but he was starting last year. So we had I think Ohio State was the youngest Power 5 team in the country last year. We were very, very young. And, I mean, there's that factor. Michigan was an older team, a lot of 5 and 6 year seniors, a lot of experience, very coachable team, right? That team was very, very coachable. I mean, I watched a couple of games and they made some really good adjustments and they had really great coaching last year. I'm curious what that's going to look like this year because I personally don't think you can replace a NFL caliber defensive coordinator. That's very hard to do. And listen, love it or not, Josh Gaddis did his version of, basically a power spread running game, very similar to, like I said, to Oregon. So I liked what they did last year. I think those guys are going to be very hard to replace. So I'm curious to see what the actual offense looks like. Does it mirror last year's team? Because I think last year's team had a lot of seniors, a lot of guys that were older on that team, and you see what bringing up a young team looks like. They're going to make mistakes. I also think I think there are other things in regards to like the coaching staff. I think a lot of guys knew that, like Matt Barnes knew he wasn't coming back. Kerry Combs knew he wasn't coming back. And I mean, some of the players have iterated that last year where, versus this year, they just, everything is just a little different. Because I think after that Oregon game, I think everybody knew that Kerry Combs was not the answer at defensive coordinator. And, he took us to motion like I've never seen anybody take an emotion before, and hung in there and still came to work every day, trying to get better. But I think everybody knew that this year wasn't our year. I think Ohio State was probably a year ahead. And like I said, I think the stars really just aligned for Michigan. I think that's just what it is. It's very similar to like the college basketball, where you might have 6 or 7 talented freshmen, but junior and senior led team, those guys are 20, 21, 22 years old sometimes. They've been around the block. And they physically can impede their will on another team. I think that's very similar to what happened last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious to see coaching wise how that works, because, a lot of players that are going to play this year didn't play last year, and Michigan has a pretty much of a cupcake schedule this year. So I'm curious to see, that gives them room to grow, room to get reps, etc. So I'm curious to see from a coaching perspective, how that works with you guys this year. I'm excited, but I'm also like, I just want to kind of wait and see.
Okay, I'm going to address something Wolf said. Yeah, Wolf. So I think it's the predictions are that our offensive side of the ball is going to be the stronger side. We have our skill position players coming back. Our 2 running backs are fairly fleet-footed. One can catch shot of the backfield and throw. So I mean, Cade McNamara is going to have to do more. So that's predicted to be our strongest side of the ball. Now, what I will say is this, Alex, and you'll find this interesting. Well, with your revelations about the entire team having the flu and the injuries, and the instability at the coaching positions, that might have been what we saw in the national semifinal. I have a new appreciation for what you guys were able to do all those years against the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
And winning some of those games, keeping some of those games close. I have a newfound appreciation for what you guys were able to do all those years, because there's winning the Big Ten, things might align for you that particular year, but once you step up and you play Alabama or Georgia, that's a whole different ball of wax.
Correct. Yeah. And honestly, I think even if we would have won the Michigan game, we weren't ready to play those teams. Just for the things that I just named, Ohio State was not ready. They weren't ready last year. I think this year or next year is probably their year where they'll win the whole thing. That's kind of where I'm at. And listen, in injuries, starting off, it looked great. Having Kerry comes back and everything, but as the season progressed, and you kind of take a step back and you analyze as you go through a season. I think that's where we land. I think we're a year or 2 away right now.
Okay.
So I'd probably say depending on what happens this year, in regards to wide receivers, it really depends on what happens with Julian Fleming and Emeka Egbuka, because I think Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jackson Smith-Njigba are going to be the 1-2. Julian Fleming is going to have a hell of a year. He came in with Njigba. And Emeka Egbuka, he's a true sophomore, so I'm assuming he's going to be that fourth wide receiver in the depth chart, and along with a host of other guys, Kai Stokes and Caleb Burton and those guys. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay. So let's talk about the defense a little bit. So you had injuries and you had an inexperienced defensive coordinator. So that you think that would account for what happened
I think
on
so. I
that side of the
think,
ball.
running a defense is kind of like running a business, and you can't have a supervisor run a business. You need a manager, that understands every intricacy of a defense, how to coach it, how to put people in the right place, things like that. So I'm very excited. We actually had an All-American safety come over with Jim Knowles from Oklahoma, so he's going to help quarterback the defense. So I think they basically run a 4-2-5, where it's 4 linemen, 2 linebackers, and 5 safeties, or 5 safeties / cornerbacks on the field, or just say 5 defensive backs. So, Jordan Hancock, who was one of the best corners in the country a year ago, is now a sophomore, and I'm heard he's taking enormous leaps. And then, you also have the kid from Arizona who started as a true freshman. And then you have, what's his name? Josh Proctor, who's supposed to be back, who was injured last year. So, that's 4 DBs right there. And, it's just going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I think a 4-2-5 definitely suits what Ohio State has on the roster. I'm curious what happens with Tommy Eichenberg and Still Chambers, who played a lot of linebacker last year. Pale Noteote as well, who transferred from USC. So I'm curious to see what those guys do. And then you obviously have, Jack Sawyer at defensive line, and JT Tuimoloau, Tyler Friday. You have a host of guys, Zach Harrison, who's coming back. So, but watching the spring game, I think those 2 true sophomores are probably the best defensive linemen that we have right now. So they're going to start. So I'm curious to see how that works on the defensive side of the ball. Who's going to play? Because I think this is also something. Although Jim Knowles has a ridiculous embarrassment of riches on his end. He's never been in this position to have the type of talent he has on his roster and put them in positions to be successful. So I'm curious how that's gonna work for him.
Okay. So Alex, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna finish this. The rest of this article is not long.
Okay.
I'm gonna finish it. You can give reaction when I get done. It's really, really short.
Okay.
Let's just complete it. Let's see. So this author is talking about his disappointments in the spring game. So offensive disappointments. And stop me if you want to say something.
Okay.
Stars saw little action after watching the replay of the Rose Bowl. I wanted to see the Buckeye offensive starters dominate the action. Stroud played 5 series, but Henderson and Smith and Jigba played less. Julian Fleming, whom I thought had a lot on the line, was held out for an injury. Lack of depth on the offensive line. The offense dominated play in the first half, but the defense took over in the second. The difference wasn't so much the absence of big-name players. Rather, it was the decline in quality between the first and second string offensive lines. It's got to be an area of concern. I hope that by the time the Irish roll in, the O-line goes a bit deeper. Jaden Ballard, and Emeka Egbuka, these guys are battling for a starting position, and I hoped that there would be a breakout by one of them or by Fleming. There wasn't. Both receivers dropped balls and didn't fight successfully to come down with the others. I know the receiver room is deep, but I'm still wondering who will join JSN and Marvin Harrison Jr. in the starting lineup. Devin Brown. I hope that Brown would play the way McCord, last year's early enrollee true freshman, did in the 2021 spring game. Brown didn't. He completed 11 passes, a game high 141 yards and a touchdown. But his throws seemed a little off the mark. The announcers several times mentioned his athleticism, but it really wasn't on display Saturday. I realized that the line was having trouble keeping rushers out in the second half, but Brown looked jittery in the pocket and couldn't elude sacks. Okay, so this last section is defensive excitement and disappointments. Young defensive backs. Going into this game, I figured that Denzel Burke and Cam Brown had the 2 corner positions nailed down. There were several returning safeties, but I was worried about depth because, if we're honest, the Buckeye pass defense often struggled last season. Enter Kai Stokes and Jordan Hancock, both played brilliantly, I thought, and really eased my mind in backfield depth. I also liked self-assuredness of transfer safety Tanner McAllister. Although he got called for a pass interference once while covering Egbuka, he did a good job in coverage. Defensive line play, especially in the second half, the D-line dominated the line of scrimmage. Paris Johnson couldn't handle Jack Sawyer's speed, as Sawyer looked particularly good. In fact, the pass rush, which was a deficiency last year, looked significantly improved in the spring game. Defensive disappointments, the linebackers. Perhaps disappointment is too strong to describe the linebacker play. Again, I was hoping for some flash by a new guy, CJ Hicks or Reed Carrico. We didn't get that, but both Tommy Eichenberg and Taraja Mitchell looked good while they were in the game. I think that we're looking for big improvements for the linebackers this season. Okay, and this is it overall. In his press conference, Ryan Day boasted of the experience of the defense, simply how much football many of the defensive players, especially on the line, had played for Ohio State. He said he was excited about the combination of all that experience with the new scheme installed for the defense. It gave the team a chance to meet our goals. On offense, they spoke about the versatility of the tight ends. To be successful at that position, you need to possess a rare combination of speed, size, and agility in order to execute the blocking and receiving responsibilities. They also praised the competitiveness of CJ Stroud. All in all, I was pretty pleased with the defense, and as always, eager to see that potent offense back on the field. Can't wait for fall. Okay. So that was by David M. Wheeler.
It's a decent article. Listen, I think I want to point something out real quick. And this is not an Ohio State thing. This is not a Michigan thing. This is a college football thing. We can't expect the moon and the stars out of 18 and 19-year-olds. College football is very different than high school football. And some players take a year. Some players take 2 years. Sometimes it takes 3 years. Sometimes it takes 4. And sometimes, it just doesn't click. For instance, Zach Harrison, 5-star defensive lineman out of Columbus. I don't think it's clicked yet for him. I don't. He has all the skills to be the best defensive lineman in the country, but he just has not put it all together yet. And sometimes it's all those things. And sometimes it's coaching, and sometimes it's fit of the defensive scheme. So there are a lot of contributing factors. But I don't. A lot of the players that he mentioned, we get the new players and we want to see what they can do. These kids are 18, 19 years old. It's the first time that they've been in a situation where they're away from home playing football. And football is kind of a business now in college. So all these different dynamics, and they still go to school. There's that point too, right? So, you never know how those things affect a kid. And I think we put too much on these kids, so to speak. I mean, if in situations, Ohio State might not necessarily be a good fit. Situations change. The room might change. The coaching might change. How coaches motivate you and affect you might change, depending on if they have an opening or a switch at that position. I mean, there's so many things that can contribute to a player not necessarily having success. It's very, very hard.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that article, he highlighted a lot of kids who were almost old enough to be my son, and I'm a young guy, so I think we put too much emphasis on freshmen, like they're supposed to come in and save the day. No, the problem is that Ohio State is so good, we shouldn't be relying on freshmen. We should be relying on still juniors and seniors. So I did want to highlight that. I'm not a fan of that.
Okay. Well, you left out. They have girlfriends too.
Girlfriends too. Listen,
they're going to the bar on Saturday night, Friday night.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a well written article. I just think we shouldn't put so much emphasis on these kids. And keep in mind, like the spring game is just a preview. A lot of players did not play in that game. It's really to get the young guys reps. And listen, the spring game is out there, so that way you make your mistakes, you go back to the film room. Okay, this is what you did. You see here what you need to work on, etc. So, just give them some time. Give them a year or 2 or 3 to really shine. So listen, it's very, and I think a lot of it when you have players like Smith and Jigba, who was probably the best wide receiver in his room as a freshman. That's rare, right? That's not every 5-star that you get. It doesn't work that way. 5-star, the rating is a projection on what they'll be in college going into the NFL, not necessarily what they are right this very second. So
interesting.
I just hope everybody keeps that in mind while if they decide to go back and read that article.
Okay. All right. Our Herbert Lewis says need time to develop in a system. Abdul Gain says I don't know if there's time to wait for the development of certain players when schools like Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia recruit at the level they do.
Well, even when you're recruiting the best players, but those players still have to develop. Right. I mean, I think you see immediate impact in other sports like basketball, for instance. It's very, very different. Your success, especially in football, relies on what your teammates do around you. It's not like one person cannot individually affect a game. 2, 3, or 4 can, but one person cannot. For instance, like if you take, let's just say, you take Jerry Rice off the 49ers, do they win all the Super Bowls? Probably. But you take Jerry Rice and Joe Montana off those teams, do they win Super Bowls? Probably not.
Well, even if you have Jerry Rice, if there's no pass protection.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of contributing factors for a team to be successful. So it's not just grab a 5-star and you'll win a national championship. It's not that simple. There's a lot of other things that come into play. And I think Ohio State does a really good job of that, but they also I think they try to temper people's expectations to say, hey, this is, he's a 5-star, he might be the best player in your state or what have you, but like he's still an 18-year-old young man. There's still maturity there that needs to happen, and maturity on and off the field and in the classroom, and how you conduct yourself and how hard you study and how hard you practice, and consistency with practicing a certain way every day and having a certain type of attitude. So all those things, and not to say players don't do it, but at the end of the day, these are still kids. That's just what it boils down to. They're still kids. It's great to talk about, but they're still kids.
Yeah, that's why I marvel at we're going to wrap up shortly at Abdul's level of fandom, because it's like win or lose. There's nothing in the middle. There's no it happened because the kid turned his ankle. It happened because the kid was playing on a bum knee. It's like win or lose, win or lose. I love fans like that.
Yeah. He's he goes hard.
He goes hard.
He goes hard. And listen, that's great until you're one of those kids who get hurt. They're like, oh, you're not supposed to get hurt. Like, how does that even happen? Like, I mean, I played sports all through high school, played a little in college, got hurt. Like, and then you try to play through it, you get hurt more. And then you really have to sit down. And it's like, well, that really wasn't my intention, but things happen.
Things happen.
Right?
I'm going to make this point. I'll give it to you, then we'll wrap up. I've been sharing those videos from that channel, Stunted Growth, in the group about he tracks all the NBA players who didn't make it. I didn't realize all those guys went down with injuries. I didn't realize all those guys had knee injuries and they just couldn't stay healthy. But that's a major part of sports. If you have a kid, he might be uber talented, he might have all the potential, but if he can't stay on the field or on the court, it just is what it is.
Yeah. My favorite, there's a guy, I cannot remember his name. He played with Michael Beasley at Kansas State. Crazy talented guy.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't stay healthy.
Yep.
I think one of my favorite players of all time is Brandon Roy.
Yep.
Listen, I think the Trailblazers, I would never want to get drafted there. They have a history of they draft great players and they just have knee issues. But Brandon Roy was, he was coming into his own. I think he was an all-star. He was a 25 plus per game scorer. Very similar to what Dame Lillard is now, but bigger. He was about 6'3", 6'4", out of Washington, and degenerative knees, man, bad knees.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy could play. I mean, he could go. He was my favorite player in the NBA, and injuries, it happens to the best of them. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately.
Hey, we're not saying anything Abdul Gaines doesn't know. How about Anthony Davis and the Lakers, Abdul? Uber talented, he can't stay on the court.
Can't stay on the court.
Can't stay on the court.
Cannot stay on the court.
He's probably not laughing at that right now.
Probably not. But the best availability, what did I say? The best available. Was it the best something as availability? But yeah, I mean, listen, Anthony Davis, top 5 talent in the NBA. Nobody can argue that. But he's a top 20 player because he can't stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
That simple.
Mm-hmm.
That affected Joel Embiid for a while. And when he first came into the league, he couldn't stay healthy.
No.
Right. And then he got his weight and his health under control, and now he's basically like an unstoppable force. I mean, that happens. Listen, a lot of people don't like this, but everybody loves John Morant. Derrick Rose was John Morant times 5.
Yeah.
And listen, he ripped out both his knees in back-to-back years, and he'll never be the same player again. But I've never seen a player as athletic as Derrick Rose. I've never seen anything like that before.
Yep.
And I probably never will again. I mean, he was the things he could do on a basketball court with his athleticism were insane. I mean, he was just good just because he was so athletically gifted.
Yep.
But I'm happy that he's found a role in a career as a veteran. But man, if he never would have gotten hurt, he was a problem.
That would have affected everything. That would have affected those titles that the Miami Heat won. That would have affected, his teammates probably would have had the chance at something like Joakim Noah and was it Boozer? Well done.
Yeah,
Well done. All those other guys on that team would have had a chance at winning something.
Corey
it
Brewer
would have been a rival for the Heat.
Yeah.
It just would have changed everything. And that's the sad thing about injuries, is that it changes everything for everybody. Some for the bad, some for the good.
That's true.
Abdul, if only it was so easy. He says it's AD's fault that he's prone to injury, plays through it. I love it. Buckeye Alex, I have a hard stop here. I have some other things to do. I'm sure you do too. Devin, you have closing words?
Let's circle back right before the season. We got a couple months. Maybe if New York decides to open up, we can all do like a live and at B-Dubs or something like that. At
B-Dubs, all right.
Yeah, maybe we can do a joint one if New York ever decides to open up.
Yeah, well, I think they're open. Abdul Gaines was celebrating a couple days ago.
But remember, they closed back down.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time keeping up with all this stuff.
Me too. But yeah, I saw he sent us a message, said they closed back down. But yeah, I mean, let's if we can do that, we should definitely try to plan that, because that'd be awesome. I'm anxious to get up there and have some wings with you guys. So
All right. Sounds like a plan. All right, Alex. Well, thank you for coming back.
no problem. Thank you for having
All
me back. Everybody have a great day. Please like and subscribe.
Yes.
Get those likes up.
Yes. All right, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. I have to take the two pooches out, and I have some more work. He said New York State put the transportation mask mandate back in effect. Okay. Everyone, this is a sports channel, but in our text group, this has been a topic of deliberation. But yeah, let me finish up here. Thank you to those of you, Wolf and Abdul, who hung out in the chat. I know this is lunchtime. Folks are probably like very, very busy, and it's the off season. So those of you who watch this on the playback, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to throw something in the tip jar, that information is below in the description box. Oh, also, Herb, thank you for stopping through as well. Yeah, please like, share, subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend. Look for a pre-record, another interview with Jason Rowe for my book project. I have to finish editing that. Please give that some love. I know football and Michigan football are the main courses over here, but I'm weaving in other stuff that I think is important. And look for Buckeye Alex to come back, especially as we get closer to fall camp and those kinds of things. I'm sure things are going to evolve. Unfortunately, players are going to get injured. There will be all types of forthcoming news for us to talk about here, whether it's on the football field or the basketball court. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I'm gonna do a video on speaking of injuries. I plan to do this. This is gonna kind of meld Michigan football and Big Ten football with my book project, because I plan to do a video. I've been planning to do this for a while on Matt Gutierrez, David Underwood, Chad Henne, and Mike Hart, and how injuries can impact futures and opportunities in teams. Me and Alex were just talking about that. And for those of you who were following the Michigan football program in the early 2000s, I was a graduate student there. You know that John Navarre's successor was supposed to be Matt Gutierrez, and Chris Perry's successor was supposed to be David Underwood, but they both got injured, paving the way for Chad Henne and Mike Hart. So look for a pre-record. I have to record it, and that's going to take some time to edit, but those things are forthcoming. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your weekend, everyone. Go Bucks, go Blue, go Big Ten, and as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I'll talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.